And there we go. I wasn't sure. StreamYard was taking a second there. You never know. Sometimes you press live on StreamYard. It's instant. Sometimes it takes a minute. You never know. It's a roll of the dice. But we are live. And guys, thank you very much for coming in here and watching. We've got Matt and I breaking down the MLB slate, followed by Josh and Eric breaking down the second to last slate of the NBA regular season. And then we've got the chaotic slate that is going to be going on Sunday. So do us a favor while you're watching this baseball show, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, check out the NBA show after this. And then Josh and I will be in playback as well after NBA Live Before Lock, where we're going to have a lot of updates for you guys because just absolute insanity at this point in the season as far as NBA is concerned. But baseball, that's going to be the topic of conversation here. I'm joined by Matt Bellman. And Matt, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Already checked playback, hopped out and hopped back in to make sure my mic was working, so we're good there. Friday night MLB, always a fun time. Man, massive slate, though. 13 games. 12 games. Baltimore, Toronto's gotten postponed since I think we started the show. But, yeah, ton of games, ton of good spots, a bunch to talk about.
Yeah, and we should talk a little bit about the weather here because like you said, it is something that is going to be impacting this slate because we've already got a game that's canceled, Toronto-Baltimore. If you guys were considering playing that game, don't do it. The game's already been called off. So we don't have to sweat whether that game is going to be on or off. They've already made that decision for us. But we've also got the game in New York today. I live in the area. The weather's fairly shitty outside. I could open up my window and give you guys a little bit of a weather report. It has been rainy on and off throughout the day. That is another game that's also pretty risky. And then also the weather here, which has been all over the place. One day it's 75 degrees. The next day it's snowing. The next day it's 70 degrees again. Then it's like cold and rainy. So it's been all over the place in terms of the weather here. I want to know from you, what are you going to do with the Giants-Yankees game?
You know, as someone who only plays minimal lineups, playing 3 tonight, I probably just won't play it. Like, I can make cases for certainly the Yankees and Robbie Ray and even the Giants, but I don't need it. Like, 13 games. I mean, even if I were playing more lineups than that, I wouldn't mind just crossing it off the way it looks right now. Bad weather, not sure it's going to play. That's what I'd say right now. Certainly that's subject to change the closer we get to lock. But for me, I'm probably just not going to play anything from it.
Yeah, so we are still obviously a couple hours away from lock. If we had this same weather report now in a couple of hours, I wouldn't be playing it. So we are just going to need, a little bit of an update as we get closer to lock. But as things stand right now, super dicey. It is, like I said, been raining on and off all day. If you look at the weather report for the rest of the night, it's about a 50% chance of rain through midnight and into tomorrow morning. So it's a game that, does it present upside? Yeah, sure. It's the Yankees offense. Robbie Ray's pitching in the game as well. He has potential to generate strikeouts there. But for me, if I had to make a decision right at this moment, which we don't have to do, a couple hours still to go. But if I had to make the decision right now, Matt, it would be out of my player pool entirely.
Yeah, there's just so many other spots to go to. It's like, why force it?
Yep, that is how I am viewing this as well. Any other kind of overarching thoughts on the slate before we start talking about the pitchers and answering questions from the viewers?
No, just a slate with a lot of good hitting spots and not necessarily that many good pitchers.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. Although I want to let you guys know at the top as well here, we are sponsored by OddsShopper and Portfolio EV. And if you guys want to get yourselves a free trial of Portfolio EV, now's the time to sign up because we have the NBA playoffs. That is going to be starting in short order. Of course, baseball, that's underway, which you guys are aware of that because you're watching a baseball show right now. But I am very excited for the NBA play-in games as well as the NBA playoffs, and it is a great time of year to bet using a market-based model. So if you guys are looking to try out our tools, great news for you. It is free for your first 7 days. So if you like it, you stick around. If you don't like it, cancel. No sweat off your back at all. I recommend you give it a try because there's no opportunity cost. It is free. Link is down below in the YouTube description box. Let's start talking about the pitchers here, Matt. And at pitcher, I'll sort here by the pricing. All right, so if we're looking at the expensive, never mind, I forgot that we don't have the pitchers filtered out who are at 0. So I'll just sort by the fantasy point projections for the pitchers who are on screen. Now, we do have a handful of pay-up options and kind of running the gamut. I like once we get a couple weeks into the baseball season because it's not like all of the aces are aligned, all of the fifth starters are aligned. You start to get a little bit of a mix of options you could potentially be going to. And that's what we've got here. We've got some crappy pitchers. We've got some legitimately really good pitchers. Although one thing that's really interesting to me, Matt, DraftKings has really changed the pricing for pitching a little bit this year. It seems they've capped the ceiling a little bit where we've got DeGrom on the slate. We've got Yamamoto. We've got Nick Pivetta pitching at home against the Colorado Rockies. We've got Aaron Nola on the slate. Nobody above 10K. Is that something that kind of struck you in any particular way? And does that change how you view some of these slates at all?
Not really. I haven't noticed that because I feel like, I could be wrong, but I think that they always start the season with pricing a little short on pitching. And then as guys start to prove they're really, worthy of being price increased, like they'll do that. That said, I don't know if there's anyone on this slate that deserves to be over 10K. So nothing I'm really too much paying attention to personally. Yeah, I mean, DeGrom, certainly the best pitcher in his prime on this slate, but is he still that guy? I don't know. So yeah, I feel like pricing is honestly pretty fair tonight.
And the way the pricing is kind of leading the field, check out these ownership projections, guys. There we go. Yeah, so we have for the slate, Jacob deGrom. Why are these numbers not correct? This isn't what the ownership is. Let me refresh. Did something change? No. DeGrom's 41% owned. Why is he showing up as 23 here? All right. Well, I'll just read off what we have on the let me check our ownership page. At least in the top pitchers tool, he's projected at 40% ownership. Let's see on the ownership page. On the ownership page, we also have DeGrom at 41%. All right, I'm going to send a note to the dev team because the data in the data hub is not aligning with what we have in the actual ownership in the top pitchers tool. So I'll also pull the top pitchers tool up here. But anyway, what I wanted to say to you, Matt, is that we have both Jacob deGrom as well as Nick Pivetta pulling north of 40% ownership. So those are your two chalk options on the slate. They're both pay up options. The other two expensive pitchers, Aaron Nola is 8% owned. Yamamoto is 14% owned. If you can only roster one of these guys, who would you be paying up for? Would you go to deGrom or Pivetta as one of the chalk options? Or would you be going to one of the lower owned options in Nola or Yamamoto?
Good question. I think I'm actually going to take one of the lower owned options in Yamamoto. It doesn't feel great, but the ownership on Pivetta and deGrom is just so high that I'm interested in seeing if there's a pivot elsewhere that I think matches their, floor ceiling combination. And Yamamoto's the closest. I think deGrom has the best floor on this slate facing Seattle. He hasn't been phenomenal this season. Certainly last start wasn't his best outing, but this Seattle lineup in Seattle against righties, we know the deal there. And Pivetta has the highest ceiling on the slate, in Colorado or facing Colorado or in San Diego. Just doesn't get much better than that for a spot. He's I don't think he's too cheap. I think the ownership just comes from the fact that Colorado it's like the White Sox. They're the White Sox, the NL version of the White Sox. Anytime you get them on the road against a competent pitcher, that pitcher is going to look good in the tools. He's going to get ownership. Pivetta looks a lot to me like Gavin Williams did on the day slate yesterday. Difference being we have a lot more pitching options today. He's certainly never a guy I want to play at 41% ownership, but I think that he looks like the best pitching play on the slate, ownership not considered. Ownership considered, I like Yamamoto the most.
Yeah, and if you do look right here at some of the top two pitcher percentages, we've got Nick Pivetta with a 20.5% chance to be the top two scoring pitcher that leads the slate. deGrom just behind him at 18.9%. So if I'm going to be going to one of the popular pitchers on the slate, my preference is to go to Nick Pivetta over deGrom just based on what some of our data is showing right now. And, we've got great matchups for both of them. You and I have talked a good amount dating back to last year about how popular pitchers often end up being going up against Seattle. But as good of a matchup as Seattle is, it's not Colorado. Now, I know that also Jacob deGrom, I think he's better than Nick Pivetta. I have a bet on Jacob deGrom to win Cy Young this year at long odds. I think that there's a pretty good chance of a bounce back season from him as long as he stays healthy. But it's really hard to ignore the Colorado Rockies when they're on the road. It's the best matchup in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could argue them or the White Sox, but that's just semantics at this point.
All right. Okay. So, what Jason told me, this is good information for you guys as well, is that when we're in the middle of an update, the data will sometimes not align between the two, and then they're going to end up matching up after the update is finished. So, I want to ask him which is more updated. All right. Of the other pay up options, do you have any kind of real strong takes about the upper echelon of pitching, whether it's somebody you think is overowned or maybe you think one of these contrarian pitchers should be much more popular?
No, I really don't. And I think that's my biggest problem with getting off of Pavetta. Like, again, I'm going to reiterate for those in the back that can't hear me. He's not a pitcher I want to play at 41% ownership. It's just most baseball slates are not won with pitching. They can certainly be lost with pitching, and that's the case for getting off of Pavetta because he's just not that good to be 40% owned. It's just, of all the pitchers on this slate, he's the only one facing Colorado in San Diego. So as much as I really want to like someone more than him, and Yamamoto, if there is a guy, would be it, it's just really hard to get away from him.
Yeah, and for reference, when I run everything through the Sims, I get Pavetta and DeGrom, a bunch of both of them. And it's kind of just giving me the chalk, which I don't have any issue with for baseball. So especially not this one when you consider the matchups. If I was playing a single entry lineup and just playing one lineup right now, Matt, I would have Pavetta and DeGrom in that lineup together. And then I would fill in my lineup to get different elsewhere. Contrarian stacked we'll talk to in a little bit. It's not to say there aren't lower owned pitchers I like. Just I think the chalky guys are both warranted today, and they happen to be my two favorite pitchers on the slate.
I get it. I totally get it.
All right, so let's go ahead and look at anything else you want to talk about from the high end.
Not really. I mean, anytime you get Aaron Nola like that low owned, it's interesting, but the tools don't really like him here. So it's, nothing more than like a spend up to be contrarian option, I guess.
All right, so let's talk about the 8K range of pitcher now. And if we look at the pitchers who are in the 8K range, we've got Taj Bradley, we've got Ronald Blanco, we've got Bryce Miller, Matt Boyd, Eduardo Rodriguez, Robbie Ray, and nobody here pulling a ton of ownership. The most popular is Robbie Ray, but you and I have both said we're not really looking to roster Robbie Ray because of the weather in this spot. So with that in mind, do you like going to Bryce Miller? He's the only one really here who's pulling ownership. Or is there a different pitcher who stands out to you in the 8K range?
Yeah, so this doesn't feel good, but no pitcher on this slate I think is going to give you the warm and fuzzies. So for me, it's going to be Erod at 8,100 against Milwaukee, coming out of Coors, got that hangover. They've been awful against left-handed pitching so far. Like, he's not a guy I trust, but in tournaments, he's got upside and he's not going to get any ownership. And he's currently the highest leveraged pitcher on the slate. I didn't even look at that before I mentioned him. So, yeah, it's going to be Erod for me. Again, it doesn't make me feel good, but there is no pitcher on this slate that's going to make me feel good because even Pavetta and DeGrom, they're the safest, but they're also way overowned. So it's not like they're doing that much for you. It's Erod for me. How about you?
Yeah, this 8K range, it's if I have to pick somebody, it's Erod. He's the only one I get to at all. So by default, he's the answer. With that said, he's in 12% of my top lineup. So in general, the way my lineups are shaping out for this slate, it's the expensive pitchers that we talked about, and Nick Pivetta and Jacob deGrom. And then it's a bunch of cheap guys, and the in-between kind of doesn't exist in my lineups. Like, we'll talk on the 7K range in a second here, which is also another dead range to me. My most rostered pitcher in the 7K range is 2% of Reese Olson, which is very, very insignificant, obviously. And then in the 8K range, the only one that I have meaningful amount, I've got 4% of Taj Bradley, I've got 12% of Erod, and that's it. So if it has to be somebody where maybe you're building a lineup and you just have that amount of salary left, I'd recommend you guys play Erod, but I find this to be an overall pretty not interesting price range.
Yeah, for me, it's Erod and Erod only. I actually do like him here. He's like, probably, he's a guy I might use, actually. And I'm playing 3 lineups tonight. He might be in 1 or 2 of them.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about from the 8K range pitchers?
No, I'm with you. Other than Erod, for me, it's a dead zone.
All right. And then one other thing as well. I'm pulling up Discord. If you guys have questions for us, let me know. But this is going to be something pretty easy right off the bat here. If you guys are playing a cash game today, because people like to ask us, who should they play in cash? This is a very, very easy answer. FanDuel is a little bit more of a discussion. For DraftKings, it's DeGrom and it's Pivetta. No real questions asked. Do you agree with that? I think you're muted.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I didn't even realize. Yeah, definitely DeGrom and Pivetta. Don't even think it's close. I will say, just pivoting back real quick, off that question, because it's obviously Pivetta and DeGrom. Ronel Blanco is a guy that's worth mentioning. I don't think he's very good, and I don't love the matchup, but the tools are high on him here. I mean, he's right behind Robbie Ray in the top 2 pitcher percentage, and he's not getting any ownership. So worth a mention, if nothing else.
All right, so let's talk about some more of the cheapies. And I already addressed that for my lineups in the 7K range. I get to 2% of Reese Olson. He's literally the only pitcher who's showing up in lineups in the 7K range for me right now. I find this to be a pretty dead range of pitching, and as does the field, because if you look at the ownership here, Reese Olson showing up in 7% of lineups, Mitchell Parker in 3%, Bryce Elder 2%, Andre Palante 2%, Davis Martin 2%. People aren't going to this pitching range, and I think for good reason, Matt. Do you think the field is missing something, though?
No, not really.
All right, and I'm just trying to follow some of the updates from the data team. It looks like, we were just in between projections, and it should all be updated and matching on both screens right now. So I'm going to go back to the data hub and make sure that that is the case here, because this should all be updated, and this will show of the 2 ownerships, Matt. I'm interested to see which is the real one, and it was the one on the top pitchers page. This is updated now. We also have DeGrom at over 40%. Just wanted to make sure that we knew for sure whether he was going to be 40 or 24% owned in our projections, and the answer is 40%. Like I said, we were just in between projections when I had that shown up on screen before. But anyway, the 6K range. Do you like punting with anybody today? Because I actually do think there are some pretty interesting low-owned punt options.
Yeah, there's one guy for sure that looks really good here, and that's David Festa. I mean, he just stands out. He's like right in between Blanco and Erod in the top pitcher tool. He's not getting a ton of ownership. He's got over a 21% chance of being at the top value pitcher on the slate. I'm not like, it's not the White Sox or the Rockies. Certainly the Tigers are much better than that, but it's also a perfectly fine to good matchup for Festa here. He's too cheap. I think he's the clear SP2 if you're not spending up.
I like Festa a good amount as well. He actually is showing up as my 3rd most rostered starting pitcher, only behind Jacob deGrom and Nick Pivetta. I think he looks really good for the slate. Field is playing him, a little bit, but it's nothing all that much. He's showing up in 12% of lineups. I'm so far overweight to that mark, Matt. He's in nearly 40% of my lineups in the run that I did before the start of the show here. So I think David Festa, really good option to go to save some salary with. And as far as David Festa goes, we haven't seen him pitch a whole lot this year because we haven't seen anybody pitch a whole lot this year. But we've also seen him make, his actual only 2 starts were in the minor leagues, not in the big leagues. If you look at his numbers last year, one thing that is kind of interesting is people might look at the ERA and be like, 4.9 ERA. He wasn't good last year, but he had a 4.14 expected ERA. He had a 3.76 FIP. And here's what I really liked about the results from Festa last year. 27.8% K rate. So this is somebody who underperformed his peripheral stats. So I think a lot of people assume that he's worse than what he actually is, but also profiles pretty favorably for DFS considering the amount of swing and misses and the strikeouts he was able to generate last year. So I think Festa is going well overlooked by the field when you get this guy who, all projection models have him somewhere around either a low 4s or a high 3s ERA this year, generates a lot of strikeouts. The matchup, it's not terrible for him either. I don't really understand the price or the ownership on Festa.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't good in his minor league starts, but you got to take that stuff with a grain of salt. Like, he knew he was going to be called up soon. I'm sure he was working on stuff. So, yeah, I feel like he's far from a lock, but he does look like the best cheap play. The only reason I'm not totally shocked at the ownership, it's just not that hard to fit in like Pivetta and DeGrom together.
Yeah. It's because of what the pricing is that I mentioned at the top here. When the top two pitchers on the slate are $95 and $9,100, this isn't like, a few years ago, I remember when Chris Sale was completely dominant and you had to make these decisions about like Chris Sale or Jacob deGrom a few years ago, and deGrom was also really dominant. It's like, boy, do I want to pay $13,000 for a pitcher who can't miss now? And we don't have quite the same amount of dominant pitchers like we had back then. But you don't have to make those decisions because the most expensive pitchers are $91 and $9,500. Actually, I kind of like the decision points when the pitchers were really expensive.
I do too. But also thinking about what you said earlier in the show, I think that's a big point. There aren't as many like dominant pitchers. I was doing a show with, I think, EMAC like a couple weeks ago, and Skeens was on it, and he was really expensive. And I made a comment like, or it wasn't even Skeens. It was someone who was like right below the top tier of pitching, but I couldn't even think of guys that were better than whoever that pitcher was because there aren't like that many aces right now. A lot of the guys that were 3-4 years ago are getting older and just are not the same anymore. Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Chris Sale is close, but he's not the same. DeGrom. So we're seeing it kind of all over. And Skeens might be like the top guy right now in the league for fantasy purposes.
Yeah, could definitely end up being the case. Outside of Festa, what else is standing out to you on the cheap end? Because there are still other cheap pitchers that I like to get to, and I'm curious if you like any of the same ones I do.
The only one I really am considering is Sean Newcomb, and it's just the White Sox matchup. Like we talked about the Rockies with Pivetta. The White Sox are the same deal. So I could use basically any pitcher against the White Sox or Rockies. And Newcomb, last I checked, is a pitcher. So yeah, it's Newcomb for me. I don't love it. I probably won't get there, but he's cheap and in, the nut matchup. How about you?
It's Newcomb for me, and once again, it's because of the matchup. He's going up against the Chicago White Sox. This team is terrible. It's going nowhere. And then on top of it as well, you get a pitcher in Sean Newcomb. I know it's been a minute since he's been a guy who was decent, but this is somebody who was a former top pitching prospect, had some success, dealt with injuries. The injuries really derailed his career. So we've hardly seen him pitch over the last few seasons. We saw him make 7 appearances last year, none of them as a starter. In 2023, 7 appearances and 2 of them as a starter. Then in 2022, when he played on multiple teams, 20 games, only 1 of them as a starter. So he has not been a full-time starter since 2018, Matt. That's how far back you have to go since Sean Newcomb was a full-time starter. He had a 3.9 ERA that year, 3.71 expected ERA. The strikeout rate, it wasn't like crazy or anything, but it was 23%. Then he got injured and just never really was able to get himself back into a starting role because he was always building himself back up from injury. I don't know what this year is going to look like from Sean Newcomb, but it's been so many years since he's been healthy. If there's any time he's going to be healthy, it's in the 3rd week of the baseball season. And on top of that as well, he's got the best matchup possible against the Chicago White Sox so far to open up the year. He has shown the ability to generate swing and misses. That's a positive. He's striking out more than a hitter per inning. If you look at his ERA, it is 5.19, but he has a 3.2 expected ERA, a 2.97 FIP. It's all small sample sizes, so the actual results from this year aren't going to matter all that much. And then to actually get a real sample size from Sean Newcomb, you have to go all the way back to 2018 anyway, which was forever ago. So, injuries have really derailed his career. Maybe he's able to put it back together this year for Boston. If there's any spot that I'm going to try to take a swing on it, it's going to be when he's very low owned at near non-existent price point. He's $6,300, and it's against the White Sox.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, like we talked earlier about the Rockies and how good of a matchup that is. They have double the top stack percentage as the White Sox. The White Sox are the lowest on the slate. Now, when I say double, the Rockies only have a 1.2 chance of being the top stack, but the White Sox are at 0.6 against Sean Newcomb. Like, that tells you how bad they are. Newcomb's in play. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about it.
All right. Anything else you want to bring up at the pitching?
Not really, but honestly, like looking at the top stack tool makes me like Newcomb more. Like Seattle against DeGrom has a higher top stack percentage by a lot than the White Sox against Sean Newcomb. I mean, it doesn't get worse than the White Sox in my opinion.
Rockies on the road might be worse. It's close though.
It
It's close.
man, I don't know. Like I think the White Sox are actually worse. I do think like again, I think it's semantics and it's very very close. I just think the White Sox outside of Luis Robert and maybe Andrew Vaughn, Miguel Vargas has been decent this year. Don't really have major league hitters. Now you could say the same about the Rockies. So it's 6 and 1, half dozen the other really.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm pulling up from last year the WRC pluses for all of these teams. And let me look actually at, okay, so we'll look at a couple of different things. First off, overall for the season, they were the two worst offenses by WRC plus. The White Sox, a 75 WRC plus, the Rockies, an 82 WRC plus. Let's see if we look at teams on the road. WRC plus does wait for park factors, but I'm still curious to see what these teams look like on the road if I pull up road splits. And on the road, where is it? Here on Fangraphs. All right, so road splits. God, my eyesight just fucking sucks as I get older. I can't see anything anymore. Here it is. Finally found it. You know why? Because I'm looking for, because I could barely see my screen. I'm looking for something that says road, but it's away is what it's labeled in here. All right. So I'm going to give it to you because I pulled up, these teams are so terrible. They were also the bottom two in the league on the road last year. And the White Sox were at 73 WRC plus the Rockies were 77. So at least based on the results of last year, and these teams are largely returning the same shitty players, the Rockies offense was marginally better than the White Sox. So I'll give it to you. White Sox, worst offense in baseball. Let's expect it.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have even gone ahead and forged through with that argument had I not seen the top stack tool. Like that's just, it's crazy to me.
Any other final thoughts at the DraftKings pitchers? If not, we'll go and look over on FanDuel.
I don't think so.
All right, let's see if there was any questions from Discord on pitchers, and we do have a couple of questions here. The first one is from Einsteinium. He wants to know why no Taj Bradley, and Taj Bradley is only in 4% of my lineups right now. He just got a tough matchup against the Braves. I know the Braves have not had a banner start to the season, and it's been a fairly just everything possible that could go wrong for them has gone wrong to this point. But this is not going to be the case going forward. I look at Taj Bradley as a pitcher who has one of the hardest matchups on the slate.
Yeah, my mind immediately went to Taj Gibson, so that tells you where I'm at right now. But as far as Taj Bradley goes, yeah, so he benefited greatly. I'm a fan of Taj Bradley. I think he's got great stuff. When he's on, he can get through any lineup. But he benefited greatly from pitching in Tropicana last year. We've seen that this ballpark is not Tropicana, and the Braves have a ton of upside. Like I'm more interested in the Braves than Bradley here, although I think they both have upside.
Yeah, I mean, Taj Bradley is clearly a good pitcher, but you just look at some of the other options on the slate and the prices as well, where, Taj Bradley's $8,700, but DeGrom's $9,500. You could also get to Pivetta at $9,100. If the conversation here is just going to be strictly based on what the ownership is, then yeah, I mean, I know there's a big gap in ownership between Taj Bradley and these guys, but still running everything through the Sims, I only get to 4% of Taj Bradley, whereas I get to a bunch of DeGrom and Pivetta. It's hard for me to make the case to play Taj Bradley over Pivetta or over DeGrom, especially for a lot of people we're watching who are probably only making like a lineup or two.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, let's talk about FanDuel pitching. And here's where we have a little bit more of a decision point to be made here, Matt, because on FanDuel, we can't play DeGrom and Pivetta together. We can only choose one of them. Pivetta, $9,300, pulling 31% ownership. Jacob DeGrom, $9,900, pulling 25% ownership. And then nobody else here is popular at all. We've got the next most popular pitcher being, it would help if I sorted by pitcher. Next most popular pitcher is Yamamoto at 5%. So for cash games, here's a real decision point. Nick Pivetta or Jacob DeGrom for cash on FanDuel?
Yeah, I think you definitely play the matchup and the ownership and just play Pivetta because he's cheaper, he's more owned, he's in the better matchup. Like he's got better strikeout stuff as of right now this season at least. So yeah, it's Pivetta for me in cash. And I think if you want to play DeGrom, you pivot off Pivetta in tournaments.
Yeah, so when I look at the slate and how it breaks out here. Like, I'm not going to fault anybody for playing DeGrom, but if I'm leaning on our data a little bit here, number one, I don't think it's a terrible tiebreaker to say, well, Pavetta's $600 cheaper. It's also not a terrible tiebreaker to say that in cash games, if you just want to cancel out more of the field, Pavetta's a little bit more popular. So between the two, I lean towards Pavetta. For GPPs, I kind of want to just be split between the two. We can make some cases for contrarian pitchers over on FanDuel, but I don't have like a super strong lean for GPPs between Pavetta and DeGrom. Even if I want to lean a little bit more towards Pavetta, DeGrom is 6% less owned. So it's close between the two for tournaments. I probably want to split there. Do you have a strong lean between the two as a GPP option? And then are there any contrarian pitchers you like on FanDuel, which is everybody else?
They're owned similarly enough, and I like Pavetta more than DeGrom. So I'm going to just play Pavetta if I were playing FanDuel here. The ownership difference just isn't enough for me to play DeGrom over him. That said, it sounds weird to say that Pavetta is a better play than DeGrom at higher ownership.
So the next question then, any contrarian pitchers you like? Because if you're not playing Pavetta or DeGrom, by default, you're getting somebody who's very low owned. Everybody else is 5% owned or less as far as pitchers go on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the guys we talked about on DK, but like you only have to play one pitcher, and it wasn't like I loved anyone else. So Yamamoto, I think, would be the obvious like pivot, who's also expensive. He's uber expensive though, so certainly going to have to sacrifice elsewhere to get him. That said, FanDuel is oftentimes pretty soft with their pricing as far as hitters go, so I don't think it's going to be hard to play him. You're just, again, going to have to sacrifice somewhere else. Other than that, I mean, I guess Erod's still similarly priced. Festa's more expensive, but still really cheap, so him also. But, you know, I think it's just the same guys on DK because pricing is pretty similar across both sites.
If you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to sign up for any of the packages that we have here at Stokastic.com, you can sign up using the link down below in the YouTube description box. But also, you get access to 1 free month of core access, which includes our player projections, ownership, our Sims tool, 1 month for free for each one of our partners that you guys sign up for here on screen. By the way, NoVig, which is not included in the graphic, they are also one of our partners now. You could sign up for them through the link that we have over on the website and follow the steps that we have on our sign up page. It's super easy. There's 4 steps that are laid out for you. You have to sign up through one of the links. And once again, that link is down below in the YouTube description box. So make sure you click on that and sign up through there. That is for tracking purposes. But if you sign up for, let's say, Caesars and Bet365, 2 free months of MLB core access. So that'll take you through April, May, June, like nearly halfway through the season, something along those lines. If you live in a state that doesn't have legalized sports betting, maybe you only have Pick'em, good news. We got a bunch of Pick'em sites as well. Underdog, Vivid Picks, Better, Sleeper, Chalkboard. Sign up for a couple of those. As many of them you sign up for, you get 1 free month of core access to any sport you're choosing. So maybe you don't want it to be baseball. Maybe you want to get core access to basketball for the playoffs. You can do that as well. Just follow the steps on the sign up page down below in the YouTube description box. And then our pal News God, he's going to handle you and get you hooked up. So take advantage of that offer if you guys haven't, because that is the best way that I think that you can get access to our tools, because it's not just the free month that you get for each one you sign up for. A lot of these books have deposit offers as well, Matt. So like you could sign up and get $250 for free with a bonus sign up or a bonus match or something like that on top of getting access to our core tools. So check out those offers. All right. Any final thoughts on FanDuel pitcher at all?
I don't think so. It looks very, very similar to TK, just as how pricing breaks down.
And Hey, I'm Drew wants to know who should he play in DK cash games for pitchers. Yeah, so I talked about it before. I think it's the easy decision ever. Just play Pavetta and DeGrom in DK cash.
Yeah, clear as day cash game options today.
And now, as for stacks, we'll start talking about some offenses here. And where Matt and I always begin when we talk about offenses is, Matt, if you're playing just one lineup in a FanDuel or DraftKings GPP, who'd be the one team you'd be looking to stack tonight?
It's a good question. And I was going to say this. I'm glad that you pivoted there. Part of the reason that the lower owned pitchers don't stand out in a big way today than they might on another slate, there aren't any stacks that are going to be uber chalky. So there isn't a real need to like get away from popular pitching because you're playing a really popular stack. For me, If I had to pick one stack right now, it's going to be the Athletics, excuse me. Really like how they look in the tools. I've been on Griffin Canning in both his starts this year, and he started off well in each of them and then slowly declined. He throws a ton of pitches. I think you're going to get into this Mets bullpen pretty early. I like the Athletics quite a bit in this spot. I like the Mets too. I mean, both sides of this game look really good, but considering where ownership is right now, I'm going to say the Athletics. How about yourself?
Ownership super spread out at offense, which you had touched on there. You've got nothing really to go for chalk. I also, I don't really like this slate for single entry. Kind of the strategies I like to employ for single entry, a lot of them go out the window on a slate like this. There's no chalk at offense to get away from. There's no chalk pitchers that I want to be targeting. There's only 2 pitchers on the slate. I don't want to stack against DeGrom or stack against Pivetta tonight. So I really don't love this slate for single entry purposes. And then what I do when I don't find one of those real clear leverage spots for me, that's when I end up leaning a little bit more on our Sims tool. And I'll just see like, all right, if I build out a bunch of lineups, which are the teams that I end up getting the most exposure to? And then from there, I kind of determine, all right, which offense do I get the most exposure to in the Sims? How does that align with what it's showing in the top stacks tool? And then I'll make a decision from there. And there is a team I get a lot of exposure to in the Sims that also looks pretty good in the top stacks tool, and that's the Tampa Bay Rays. They're also fairly cheap, which is nice because that allows us to make a stack of them with both Nick Pivetta as well as Jacob deGrom. They've got a matchup against Bryce Elder, who had a lot of struggles last season. There was a point in time where Bryce Elder looked like a somewhat promising young pitcher, but hasn't really borne out that way at all. Last year, lost his starting spot in the rotation. This is why. He had a 6.52 ERA, a 5.04 expected ERA, a 4.56 FIP. He was legitimately good in 2023 and was pretty good in 2022 as well, although only in 9 starts. And then you go into 2024. He's a part of the Braves rotation. He's terrible. And how does he open up this year? 6.75 ERA and an 8.44 expected ERA, 9.47 FIP. I think Bryce Elder might be really bad, Matt. It's hard to know for sure just because of how, the season's opened. And then even last year, he lost his starting job, so he only made 10 starts. But 10 terrible starts last year. He's opened up this season with a terrible start as well. I want to attack him because I think there's a real chance that he is just miserable this season, and he might even be out of the Braves rotation in a month.
Yeah, I mean, I got absolutely zero arguments with that. Tools have the Rays and the Athletics is back-to-back in the top stack tool. Both of them are like basically the same as far as their ownership, considering where they are in the top stack tool. I would rather face Bryce Elder than Griffin Canning, no doubt about it. I think the Athletics lineup is better than the Rays, so I'll give the advantage to the Athletics there. Ballparks are similar as far as offense, like 2 minor league parks, like actual minor league parks. So I think getting the teams in both these parks might be the way to go. Yeah, I like Tampa a lot too. Elder sucks, so there's no doubt about that. It's just, do the Rays have enough upside to get there? I don't see why not.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, if we do sort just by the leverage column here in the top stacks tool, number 1, it's the Marlins, primarily because of how cheap they are, so they just show up as a really strong value stack. Number 2, it is the Tampa Bay Rays, and they actually have a 6.6% chance to be the top stack. That's the 4th highest on the slate, so this is the team I get the most exposure to overall on the slate, Matt. I like them a lot for single entry as well, so Tampa Bay against Bryce Elder. I think that's a pretty good spot to be going to. And Trey in chat saying the Braves just need to punt out in the year. Probably a little bit early to say that. I still think they'll be okay going forward.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Keep in mind too, they've got,
With
if
the
I'm not
Braves?
mistaken, Strider's expected to join the team next week. Cy Young candidate. You got Acuna. He's going to be joining the team in short order. MVP candidate. So it'll be fine. Also, they started the season on the road against the Dodgers, on the road against the Padres. Tough start for them to open up the season. They played fairly well against the Phillies after that. I fully expect them to make the playoffs and be pretty good to go for the future moving forward.
Totally agree. And I'll say this, I was just talking 10 minutes ago about how there aren't as many aces. Strider is a legit ace. We haven't seen it in a while, but I mean, even more than Skeens, he might actually be the top pitcher for MLB DFS. Like, he is that guy. I think that's no question, even when he returns. So the Braves' outlook is certainly pointing up in my eyes too.
Yeah. I expect them to be good. You know what'll help them? Their first series against, they'll get a run where they get to go play against like the NL Central or something like
Right.
that, and it'll be like, hey, look, the Braves just won 8 to 10 games or something.
Yeah, or like whatever it is. I mean, there's plenty of bad teams. They'll get the Marlins a bunch again. They'll get the Rocky. Like, they'll get some bad teams. And to be perfectly honest, they were a team I was considering saying as far as my favorite stack, because it's not a good matchup. Bradley's good, but the Braves have a ton of upside in this spot, in this ballpark, against a guy who is susceptible to power. So they're on my short list, like, for sure here.
What are the other stacks that are of importance to you? Because, like you said, there isn't that much concern about ownership. I guess we should talk about the Mets as the most popular team on the slate, but they're still sub 10% owned. So that's certainly nothing problematic. If we look at the individual hitter exposures, like who's the most popular hitter overall on the slate? It's probably not a very high number. Let's see. Most rostered hitter. It is... All right, if we sort by ownership, it's Lindor at 16%. Then you get Ohtani, he's 13% owned. Jordan is 12%. Yeah, we've got like 4 hitters on the entire slate that are projected. Yeah, it's 4 hitters on the entire slate that are projected for north of 10% ownership. So if you guys are building out your lineups, I wouldn't even concern myself that much with ownership at offense, because it's really spread out. Just kind of play whichever offense you like best. I mentioned I like Tampa Bay Rays a lot, but for yourself, Matt, who else are the priorities for stacks and hitters?
Yeah, so on one hand, you've got a team like the Mets, and your first glance is like, I don't want to play the highest owned offense on the slate, but then it's like, they're not even 10% owned as a whole. So the Mets and the Dodgers, 2 teams that, I'm either going to play or be scared not to play. I don't think Sears is a bad pitcher, but certainly we've seen this ballpark is conducive to hitting. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. Boyd is not a guy I'm going to often pick on, but he's not a guy I'm afraid to use the Dodgers against. So those 2. How about you?
Yeah, so for myself, I do like the Mets. I know the field also likes the Mets quite a bit, so it's not like some sort of crazy take. I think it's warranted that the field is clicking that button there. Another one as well that's kind of interestingly showing up in lineups for me, it is the Washington Nationals. So the Nationals are a stack that are showing up a little bit for me, actually showing up currently the second most of any team on the entire slate. It was just something I wasn't really expecting to see when I ran everything through the Sims. The Rays being number 1, no surprise for me at all on that side. That makes a whole lot of sense. The Nationals, some of these teams that just show up a good amount in the Sims, I just trust the data and roll with them. But I'd be remiss if I did not point out how much of the Washington Nationals are currently showing up in my lineups in the Sims. If we look at Washington against Edward Cabrera, there's nothing in the top stacks tool that makes them look really great or terrible. The park is definitely not ideal for the Nationals here, where they're going to be on the road in a pitcher's park in Miami. So a little bit of a downgrade there. But as far as Edward Cabrera goes, he's a guy who I'm also kind of skeptical on this year. He had a really poor season last year. Do you remember all those spots where he was just randomly popular for no reason and we were really excited to stack against him? He finished the season with a 4.95 ERA and a 4.79 expected ERA. Cabrera just might not be very good. He has good strikeout stuff. He's capable of generating swing and misses, but there's a lot of upside against him. He's an 18.3% home run to fly ball rate last year and 16.9% for his career. Just based on that, and then also some of the data that I'm getting to in the Sims where I get overweight to him, I do want to be targeting a crazy homer-prone pitcher who lets a lot of guys on base with walks.
Yeah, so I like that call. Man, it's tough to know exactly what to make of Cabrera. Like, he hasn't pitched this year yet. I don't expect him to go that deep in this game, and it's a bad ballpark for hitting, but it's still a good spot for Washington, a team that just mashes right-handed pitching. So I can get on board with that. To be perfectly honest, there's a bunch of stacks that look good here, and on a lot of slates would be higher priorities. There aren't that many good pitchers. So Boston against Davis Martin, Philly against Payante, Houston against Kochanowicz. Like, all these stacks look good. I got no arguments with, I would say 15 to 18 stacks today. I mean, that's how many I think I could get on board with.
Yeah, it's one thing that does kind of suck about slates of this size when I run stuff through the Sims. Like, there'll be a lot of teams that show up in like 6 to 3% of lineups, and that ends up being like half the teams that exist on the slate. So, I try not to focus on those individual teams too much, and just really try to focus on the ones that either I might like a lot or the data might point me to a lot. But yeah, Washington is one for me when you just consider that Cabrera, who's had a crazy up and down career because he's been good at times, he's been really good at times. Last year, he was a gas can for the entire season and gave a bunch of home runs. The one thing that has been consistent, home runs have always been an issue for him. And that's always going to be something that's pretty favorable for DFS purposes. But as far as other offenses go, if we're talking about ones that I actually get to a good amount of, there's one in here that's pretty funny to me, Matt, is another offense that shows up in double-digit amount of lineups for me. It is the Atlanta Braves against Taj Bradley, a team that just based on some of the comments in the chat, like I do think this Braves team is going to be, at least for the next month or so, maybe not a month because they might go on a hot streak and people view them otherwise, at least for the next few games until they get going. This is going to be a team that's going to be underrated in the public side just because of what their record is.
That's so dumb. So dumb. Is the chat just shitting on the Braves here? Because if so, I like them more too. Yeah, the Braves.
Not really shitting on them. Just a couple people like the Braves suck.
They don't, though. They don't suck. I mean, the Braves are really, really good. They're still like a clear top 8 team in baseball. Certainly without Strider and Acuna, their upside is capped because, I mean, they're missing their best pitcher and their best position player. Like, they've got a lot of other really good players, but that's not nothing when you're missing your best pitcher and your best position player. So I'm with you. I like them in this spot. I think the offense we really need to talk about, though, that we haven't mentioned really is Boston, because Davis Martin stinks. The Red Sox are clearly in a good spot. They're also the second highest owned team on the slate. Now, that's not really warranted considering where their top stack percentage is, but I still don't think it's like you don't play them because of ownership. So I'm not exactly sure what to make of Boston. Do you have a strong take on them?
Yeah, Boston is not really showing up in lineups for me on my Sims run. I only have them in 2% of lineups as a 5-man stack at the moment. So, we've got them pulling 6.5% ownership. They're also fairly expensive. They're showing up as overowned in the top stacks tool. Really the only team actually that shows up is overowned in a way that's kind of meaningful. The other one is the Giants, but we've already written them off anyway because we're, at least for now, assuming that game is going to have weather issues. But you are correct. There's only one team that shows significantly overowned in the top stacks tool, and it is the Boston Red Sox. And then when I run stuff through the Sims and don't get to them, it's a good ballpark for them. I don't think that Davis Martin is some sort of lights out pitcher or anything like that, but our data doesn't really like Boston that much.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge for me. Like, because when you, at first glance, like a 30,000 foot view of this slate, Boston looks really, really good here. But when you take a deeper dive, they don't. So it's important to kind of make those distinctions.
Are there any super low owned offenses you like today, or any teams that you like to try to get leverage with? It's kind of hard to go the leverage angle when the only two popular pitchers are DeGrom against the Mariners or Nick Pivetta against the Rockies. But do you see any super low owned offenses on the slate? And by the way, no is an acceptable answer.
There's one offense that I keep going back to that my eyes keep gravitating towards. It's the Phillies against Payante, a guy that I don't think is very good. They're high in the top stack tool, and they're under 4% owned. They're coming in with decent leverage. It's the Phillies for me. They're expensive. They always are. Bryson Stott leading off today. Is Bryce Harper not in the lineup? Someone's not in their lineup today, I don't think.
Let's see. The Phillies official lineup. Let me go to Discord and see if I could find what we have posted from NewsGod. Stott, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos, Kepler, Bohm, Marsh, and then Marchand.
So Real Muto.
Yeah. So it's Harper's in the lineup though.
Yeah, but it's Real Muto that's not.
Yeah.
So I
So you
just
get
got that
the
wrong.
Marchand. I don't know exactly. He's got the accent mark over the A there, so not exactly sure how his name is pronounced. But yeah, it is a little bit weaker of a lineup because you got what is going to assume to be a pretty easy out in Marchand there as opposed to a Real Muto.
But Real Muto's expensive. Marchand is not. So it does give you some salary relief at a position that is, not that desirable. So I kind of like that lineup. Like Bryson Stott leading off is attractive to me. I like the Phillies here.
Now let's see if there was any final questions in Discord for us. If yes, I'll answer them. If not, you and I will do our home run pick, and then we will be out here for the day. Capanicella did say, can we get our preferred 5-man stack for single entry? Yeah, so for me, the answer is the Tampa Bay Rays. And just remind me, what was your answer again, Matt?
Mine was the Athletics, but that is, again, subject to change. I mean, I like the Rays. I like the Braves. I like the Athletics. I like the Mets. I like there's a bunch. I'm still not decided yet, but I'll stick with the Athletics, who was my first answer.
We've got Josh Gillum did ask us, is the Yankee game safe for weather? And the answer to that is not only is it no, but the chance of rain around the start of the game has now gone up from 50% to 70%. So I know from looking out my window, I could do this again. I could do the old window test. See what we got. It's raining here. It is raining here for the record. So is it for sure going to get canceled? No, but it's pretty risky on a slate this size. My preference is still to not play the Yankees-Giants game. Still an hour to go where things could change, but on the weather front, Matt, the one thing we could say for sure is that the game isn't safe.
Yeah, I'm with you totally on your outlook there.
Yeah, Nathaniel Lowe has been scratched today due to an illness, so he will not be out there today. So take note of that. Any final thoughts at offense, Matt? If not, we could do our dong pick, and then we could have people head on over to NBA Live Before Lock in a few minutes.
Yeah, let's do our dong pick.
All right, one more time. If you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we want to hear from you guys as well. Let us know in YouTube chat, who are you picking to go yard today? And we'll read off some of your guys' responses on the show here. But for yourself, Matt, who's the dong of the day?
Obviously, a ton of good options here. I'm going to go back to a guy I just mentioned like a minute ago. Bryson Stott, leadoff bomb against Andre Payante. I like him a lot here.
Okay. Let me go and look at my hitter exposures. Who am I going to go with? Ooh, I like this one. All right. So correlates a little bit with what I was talking about at the top, which is, CJ Abrams. I mentioned that I was getting more national stacks than were expected. And then you look at Edward Cabrera's numbers. And once again, here's his home run to fly ball rate by year. So we're looking at a guy in Edward Cabrera who, despite pitching in an extremely pitcher-friendly park, which obviously he's in that park today still, but he just really struggles with power. And we had him 18.3% home run to fly ball rate last year, 13.9% in 2023, 15.4% in 2022, and then his rookie year in 2021 at 27.3% home run to fly ball rate. So overall for his career, 17% of the balls hit in the air against Edward Cabrera turn into home runs. So Cabrera, homer-prone pitcher. But I wonder what might happen to him if he ever leaves Miami and goes into an actual hitter-friendly ballpark. Like imagine if he was pitching in Cincinnati one year or something like that. The guy could set records for home runs allowed. So CJ Abrams, despite the favorable pitching park, it appears based on all the data, Edward Cabrera is capable of giving up home runs anywhere. So that is going to be my home run pick. And now from chat, let's see what we've got. We have Shea Langoliers from Wookie. Tango Hotel has got Tyler Soderstrom. Ryan Rennebaum is going with Brent Rooker to hit not one but two homers today. Steven Leibowitz is going with Tristan Cassis. We've got Jake DeWitt going with Austin Riley. Our old pal Emac has got Jose Siri. We've got Donovan from Aaron Hines. Rooker as well from Michael Henry. Vinny Pasquantino from Willie B. We've also got Austin Riley from CJ the Great Boy. A lot of repick home run picks here. Nikola Jokic, the actual Nikola Jokic, I assume, has got Shohei Ohtani to hit 2 homers today. James Wood for Michael Henry. James Wood for Michael Roundtree as well. What is going on here? It's just every other pick. It's somebody who just answered the other one. Not a bit either, because people are just kind of typing these at the same time. Jonathan Aranda from Taco Bell. Trey McKell is going with Taylor Ward to homer for a 3rd consecutive day. Chris DiDio has got Bryce Harper. Jake Cronenworth from Andre B. We've got Nicholas Barrett going with Brandon Lau. We've got Luis Angel Acuna from Maniac Sports Pod. Brandon Lau as well from Pierre. Soderstrom from Rooster Slinky. Kyron Paris from Dirty O. Manny Machado from Reg Kell. Folk Matt is going with Mike Trout. And then we've got Francisco Lindor from Matt Gibson. And then we've got Riley Green from Abyss 3. Kyle Schwarber from Mike D. And then finally, BD bringing us home. He's got Juan Soto to homer for the New York Mets tonight. And that is going to do it for us, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Give Portfolio EV a go if you haven't already. We got lots of new MLB markets loaded into the Portfolio EV tools. Your first 7 days, totally free. And if you guys want to get more of me tonight, after NBA Live Before Lock, I'm going to do the Josh Engelman over on playback. It'll be our final playback show of the NBA regular season. So go check that out. That will be at 7 p.m. Eastern time over in playback. So guys, thank you very much for watching. Good luck, and I'll see you in playback in a little bit. Peace out.